The Prime Minister doubled debt, doubled the cost of housing, doubled crime with firearms, and doubled the use of food banks. And until a few minutes ago, he had a minister with a double identity. Is the Prime Minister aware of the fact that the minister in question directed his company when he was in cabinet, and he said he was falsely Indigenous? He's aware of this, and he defended and kept this minister in cabinet. Why did the Prime Minister, why is he so determined to protect the corruption of this minister?
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Edmonton Centre has left the cabinet and will focus on defending these allegations. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, when the opposition leader talks about challenges that Canadians are facing, he's not offering any solutions except for cuts. He wants to cut the dental care program. He will cut the pharmacare program for contraceptive drugs. He will cut daycare spots. He will be cutting when Canadians need investment and growth. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, the former Attorney General in the Liberal Party, appointed by this Prime Minister, the first Indigenous person in this role, said that this was an insult for a Liberal minister to say they're Indigenous when it wasn't the case. But let's look at the different treatment of these two people. Why did the Prime Minister let go of a true Indigenous woman for having to tell the truth while supporting
Did Randy leave?
Indigenous minister who said falsehoods?
Randy left?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Did this just happen?
Speaker, for a leader who says he's concerned about people telling the truth, it's interesting to see that he is muzzling his caucus to not allow them to express their concerns with respect to investments in their community. Today we've learned, Mr. Speaker, that he doesn't allow free expression to his own members. Mr. Speaker, we're here in this place to raise our voices for our communities, but he wants his members to be speaking only his voice in their communities, and that's not how things work. The Conservatives members should say what they think, really.
Bro, Randy's gone. He got fired.
Opposition.
This Prime Minister in 9 years doubled housing costs, doubled the debt, doubled gun crime, doubled food bank use, and up until a minute ago, he had a minister with a double identity. The Prime Minister knew that the minister was directing his business illegally from inside cabinet. He knew the minister had claimed there was another Randy when there was no other Randy. He knew that the minister had falsely claimed to be Indigenous in order to take money away from real Indigenous people, and yet he stood by him up until yesterday. Why is it that he always stands up for corruption on his own side?
I mean, he's gone now, Pierre. He's gone.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the member for Edmonton Centre has stepped down from cabinet to focus on clearing these allegations. Mr. Speaker, with the
Handong 2.0
talks about the importance of speaking up. The reality is,
Oh, shut up with the reality.
no longer voices for their communities. They are his voice in their communities. That's not how this place is supposed to work, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on making sure that we're investing in Canadians, supporting them with the kinds of supports for housing, supports for dental, supports for childcare that Canadians need, while all he offers is cuts and austerity.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Muzzling caucus members. This is the guy who fired the first Indigenous Attorney General because she refused to defend his corruption. She said, and I quote, "A Prime Minister committed to true reconciliation would have removed Randy and the other Randy from cabinet long ago. Instead, we have to get to watch white people play ancestry wheel of fortune so shameful and extremely destructive." Why is it that he fired a real Indigenous minister for telling the truth while trying to keep in place a fake Indigenous minister who told falsehoods?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, telling the truth would be MPs continuing to stand up to advocate for their communities. But the Leader of the Opposition has asked them not to be their community's voices here in Ottawa, but instead be his voice in their communities. This is supposedly the party of freedom and freedom of speech, but he's muzzling his MPs. He's not letting them talk to the media. He's not letting them talk to committees. The reality is he's afraid of what they might say about him, because there is no
I don't think that at all.
this way.
That's just factually incorrect.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this from a Prime Minister who has 20 caucus members that have signed a letter that they're ready to fire him. Why wouldn't they? This is the guy who's doubled housing costs, doubled gun crime, doubled food bank use, doubled the national debt, kept in place a minister with a double identity. Even his own caucus members know he's not worth the cost, crime, or corruption. So if he's not afraid of anything, why doesn't he call a carbon tax election like an idiot?
There you go. Come on, tough guy.
Order.
No.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition just made very clearly the point that the MPs on this side of the House are free to share their opinions publicly. When they're ones that I disagree with. Absolutely. But
Yo, the Conservatives are having a grand old time. He's going to try to mute the microphone.
Colleagues, the more time that we spend here in the chair interrupting the process so that we get order in the House, the fewer questions we will be able to have and fewer answers we'll be able to have in question period. So please control yourselves today. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, in the minds of Conservatives, we just saw a big gotcha moment where I admitted that Liberal MPs are free to speak their minds and voice their opinions even when we have disagreements. That was astonishing to the members of the Conservative Party because they're not allowed to do that. They are not allowed to speak to the media. They are not allowed to speak their minds. They are not allowed to be voices for their communities. They are not allowed to stand.
What a gaslighting
In their cities.
piece of crap.
That is the real scandal in this place, Mr.
Order!
This is a zoo. Oh my goodness. He didn't mute the mic. So tell me the petition doesn't work. Try and tell me the petition didn't work. Look at him. Dude, we got like the top 50 something most popular petition in all of Canada.
You know, families are telling me, they're telling me that their cell phone bills and their internet bills are so high that they have to cut back on monthly costs, like their swimming lessons for their kids. The Liberals are hurting Canadians by taxing and
Call an election.
And King Cut and the Conservatives are going to make things even worse. They want to cut the benefit for children, the child benefits, that could lose families $600 a month. Now, will the Liberals stop taxing essentials like cell phone and internet bills right now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
If the NDP wants to join us in making life more affordable for Canadians, all they have to do is put an end to the obstruction of the work of Parliament that the Conservatives are leading on. Parliament is supposed to do the work of Canadians in making their lives better, but with the Conservative Party's obstruction, there are bills being slowed down, there are measures around dental care, around Indigenous services, school foods. These are things that we need to unblock in this House, and if the NDP will help us stop the obstructionism by the Conservatives, we can deliver for Canadians.
Here we go, Pierre.
Once again, all comments must be addressed through the Speaker, but I know that he wasn't really speaking to the Speaker himself. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Has now admitted that the immigration system is broken after 9 years of his government. He blames bad actors. So let's put our detective hat on and find out who those bad actors were. Who was the head of the federal government that increased permits for temporary foreign workers by 154%? Who was the head of the federal government that issued 211% more permits for international students and a population growth plan that boosted growth by 300%? Wow. Can we identify who was that bad actor?
Aggressively passive. I love it.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, following a pandemic that had devastated our economy in a short-term way, Canadians needed and businesses needed extra support, so asked for more temporary foreign workers, asked for more international students, and we gave them. Our economy grew. Our economy got back faster than the United States, got back faster than many other countries of the world. And then we're now in a different situation where we've had to step up and reduce immigration numbers to make sure that our housing issues can catch up. This is what a responsible government does. It puts forward solutions that are right in the moment and corrects them when they're no longer needed.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I don't think we found the bad actor yet. He blames it on labor market needs, but the biggest growth happened in non-labor market immigration. For example, he boosted permits for international students by 211%, and refugees by 726%. That has nothing to do with filling job vacancies. And when it comes to temporary foreign workers, he allowed more to go to places with already high unemployment. So once again, who was the bad actor that made these terrible decisions?
Yeah, man. Yo, Pierre is good at what he does.
Well, Prime Minister.
He's good.
These little performances that the Leader of the Opposition.
Oh.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, these little performances that the Leader of the Opposition puts on are not fooling anyone. The only thing he is interested in is his own interests, his own quest for power. He is not asking he's asking his MPs to not be strong voices for their communities, including in communities that are relying on the investments in their housing so that they can respond to growing populations and housing pressures caused by increasing population. These are the things we are busy solving, but he would rather muzzle his MPs in order to look good when he's doing his little show.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's not helping us find the bad actor. You know, it's like there's been someone else running the country for the last 9 years. The system has come crumbling down. He claims that he cares about housing, but on that subject, maybe we'll ask him this question. Who is the head of the government that was warned by its public service 3 years ago that increasing population growth by 300% would cause the massive housing shortages that we see today?
Yeah.
The right honourable
Dude, Pierre's on fire.
Again, Mr. Speaker, with the little performances, when he would rather not admit that when he Harper's failed housing minister, he created a total of 6 affordable housing units across the country. He was part of a government that completely pulled back from any investments in housing. And yes, as a government, we've had to step up, make record investments. But even as we are making record investments to accelerate the construction of housing in Conservative ridings across the country, he's preventing his Conservative MPs from standing up for their communities to solve this housing crisis.
Like a fraction of the Liberals stand up and clap. It's so pathetic.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when I was housing minister, we had 1 home built for every 1.5 people added to the population, which meant we were adding houses faster than we needed to, and we were providing affordable homes of half the cost of today. Last year, they added 1 home for every 5 new people, the biggest housing deficit in history. So once again, who was the bad actor running the government that was warned by its officials that all of this out-of-control population increase would cause a housing shortage?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government in which the Leader of the Opposition was their failed housing minister deliberately chose to get out of the business of housing, which meant we needed to step up with a national housing strategy in 2017 and with record investments, not just to create more housing, but to change the way housing is built in communities across this country. That is money put into the pockets of municipalities to invest, to densify, to rapidify, to accelerate the permitting. Money that he's promising to take away, that his MPs are trying to speak out to defend.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when I was housing minister, housing was half the cost. When I was jobs minister, I actually cut down the number of temporary foreign workers to make sure Canadians got the job. But the bad actor he's referring to is the same head of government that allowed 211% more study permits for people who weren't supposed to be working. He allowed 154% more temporary foreign workers while Canadians were looking for jobs, and 726% more refugees. Mr. Speaker, if he wants to know who is the bad actor that broke the immigration system, why doesn't he do what he loves to do the most? Look in the mirror.
Woo-wee! There you go. Put some W's in the chat for that one. That one was a good singer.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the irony of this, as the Leader of the Opposition likes to rhyme off facts and figures, is he won't even take a briefing that will allow him.
Here he goes. The same song and dance.
Facing this country.
This company, he just called Canada a company.
Will not admit to. He has refused to get his security clearance. He has refused to take the briefings necessary to keep Canadians safe. So anytime he chooses to rhyme off facts and figures, we know that he is not actually caring about Canadians. He's caring about himself.
That's phenomenal.
Mr. Speaker, every day this House shows Quebec why we really need to get out of here. In the meantime, we have to repeat that the 4 parties in this House supported Bill C-282 on supply management, one of the rare consensus we still have here. 2 senators are blocking it. For the Prime Minister, is the Senate worth more than the vote of all elected officials from Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in this House, like the Bloc leader has underscored, we all have supported unanimously protecting supply management, almost unanimously. On this side of the House, we are in favour of it. But the reality is that the Senate is doing its work. It is looking at this bill, and we will not accept any bills that minimize or take away the obligation of this chamber to protect supply management in any future trade deals. We are clear on this. Regardless of the work of the Senate, the desire of the chamber is clear.
Then I have
The honourable member from Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, democracy has spoken, and yes, there are some 50 Conservative members that voted against supply management. Nevertheless, to try to solve this imbroglio, I will remind everyone else this. I will go to the Senate to meet with senators in person. Can the Prime Minister also meet with these senators himself? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I often meet with senators and I'll continue to do so. But on this particular issue, I want to be absolutely clear. We will always protect supply management, regardless of the opinion of senators. We will defend, that was ironic, but we will defend the integrity of our supply management system, even when we negotiate new trade deals.
the Honourable. Then I have
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
By stopping to tax the essentials.
Hear, hear.
Every time Bell or Rogers raise the price of your cell phone, the amount of GST people pay goes up too. The GST should never have been applied to essentials, but the Liberals are letting you down. It's time to fix this. Will the Prime Minister give people a hand by eliminating the GST on all essential products? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the NDP wants to join us in making life more affordable for Canadians, they just have to help us and the obstruction of this Parliament by the Conservatives. We want to work for Canadians to keep living costs down, but the Conservative Party's obstruction and the NDP's inaction on this issue has made essential bills held up. Dental care, school food, housing, Indigenous services are all held up. So many other things. So they need to work with us so we can prevent the Conservatives from blocking aid for Canadians.